The afternoon sun, a buttery yellow, streamed through the high windows of the Memphis diner, painting stripes across the checkered floor. Elvis Presley, usually surrounded by a whirlwind of people and noise, found a rare moment of quiet in a back booth, sipping coffee and watching the world go by. He wore dark sunglasses, a casual shirt, and a hat pulled low, hoping for anonymity, and for the most part he had it. He was tired of the constant attention, the endless demands. Sometimes he just wanted to be a regular man. He was deep in thought, perhaps wondering about the purpose of it all, the fame, the money, the isolation it often brought. His mind drifted to simpler times, to the days before the screaming fans and the bright lights, when a nickel for a soda was a big deal. He missed the feeling of genuine, unburdened connection. Suddenly, a conversation from the booth behind him snagged his attention. It wasn't loud, but the voices, a young man and a young woman, were filled with a raw, touching emotion that cut through the diner's gentle hum. I wish, the woman sighed, her voice soft, I wish we could, Mark. Every time I see them, in the window of Goldsmith's, I just imagine us. The man, Mark, sounded defeated. Sarah, honey, you know we can't. Not right now, the car repairs, your dental bill. It's just not in the cards. A wedding is one thing. We can manage simple. But a ring, a proper ring, his voice trailed off thick. Elvis subtly leaned back, trying to hear without seeming to eavesdrop. He knew Goldsmith. It was one of the fanciest jewelers in Memphis, right downtown. It's not about the diamond, Mark, you know that, Sarah continued, her voice gaining a touch of fragile strength. It's what it means, a promise, something solid to hold on to. We said we'd wait until we could afford something special, but it feels like special is always just out of reach. You are special, Sarah, Mark said, and Elvis could almost hear the sincerity in his voice, the way it trembled slightly. Our love is special. That's what counts. We don't need a ring to prove it. We'll get married, darling, even if it's just with a simple band from a pawn shop, or no band at all. A sniffle. Sarah was crying. I know, and I love you for saying that. It's just sometimes I wish for just one little piece of magic, you know? Just one tiny thing to make it feel like dreams do come true, even for people like us. Magic dreams. He had so much magic in his life. So many dreams come true, yet he often felt hollow. And here were two young people so clearly in love, dreaming of something so fundamental, so universal. And it was just beyond their grasp. He imagined Sarah's face etched with longing, and Mark's, burdened by the inability to provide. He'd always been a giver. It was his nature. He'd bought Cadillacs for strangers, built homes for friends, handed out cash like candy, but this felt different. This wasn't about flash or grand gestures for the sake of it. This was about a quiet, heartfelt need, a symbol of hope and commitment that money in their case was preventing. He imagined them walking past the jewelry store, their faces pressed against the glass, seeing the glimmering rings, feeling that familiar ache of desire and resignation. He'd seen that look before in the eyes of people who wanted something beautiful but knew it was out of their league. He remembered his own mother wanting things she could never have. The couple went quiet, then probably just holding hands. Under the table, finding comfort in each other's presence despite the shared disappointment, Elvis finished his coffee, his mind racing. He had to do something. He wasn't sure what or how, but the thought had taken root, firm and unyielding. It wasn't about charity, it was about providing that little piece of magic Sarah yearned for. It was about making a dream come true for two people who deserved it. Not because they were famous or rich, but because they simply loved each other. He stood up slowly, paying his bill with a silent nod to the waitress. As he walked past the booth, he caught a glimpse of them. Sarah had her head on Mark's shoulder, her eyes closed, a single tear tracking a path down her cheek. Mark was stroking her hair, his gaze distant perhaps, imagining a future where such things weren't luxuries. They looked so young, so vulnerable, and so deeply, profoundly in love. Elvis walked out into the bright Memphis sunshine, but his mind was still in that dim diner booth. He knew he couldn't just walk up to them and offer a ring. That would be too much, too jarring, perhaps even humiliating for them. No, this had to be something special, something that felt like a gift from fate, a whisper of magic, just as Sarah had wished. His next move, whatever it was, had to be carefully planned. It had to be incredible. The drive back to Graceland was a blur of familiar streets and the quiet hum of his Cadillac. Elvis didn't turn on the radio. Usually his constant companion, he needed silence. The words of the young couple in the diner replayed in his mind like a broken record. Just one little piece of magic to make it feel like dreams do come true even for people like us. That line had stuck with him, burrowed deep. He, Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, lived in a world where dreams were supposed to come true. He had more money than he could ever spend, more cars than he could drive, yet he often felt a gnawing emptiness, a disconnect from the simple, honest desires that once fueled his own ambition. He pulled into the winding driveway of Graceland, the grand white pillars rising majestically against the clear blue sky. It was home, but sometimes it felt like a gilded cage. He nodded to the guards, then headed straight inside, bypassing the usual greetings from his entourage. He went to his private study, a room filled with books, awards, and the quiet echoes of his own thoughts. He sank into a plush leather armchair, staring out the window at the sprawling lawns. What could he do? His first thought, the easiest, was to simply send someone to Goldsmith's, buy the most expensive ring, and have it delivered. But that felt crude, impersonal, like a charity handout. Sarah hadn't asked for charity. She'd yearned for magic. He thought about his own early days, how much he'd wanted to buy his mother a decent home, a new dress, how he'd scrimped and saved. He remembered the feeling of wanting something so badly, something so simple and not being able to have it. He understood their struggle, the quiet desperation, the love that made the hardship bearable. This wasn't about showing off his wealth. He paced the room. If he just showed up at their door, he'd be Elvis. It would turn into a spectacle. The news would get hold of it. Their private moment, their simple wish, would become a national story, potentially overshadowing the sincerity of the gift. He didn't want that. He wanted their joy to be pure, untainted by the glare of his fame. He stopped, a flicker of an idea taking hold. Anonymous, or mostly anonymous, like an angel, a guardian angel, a force of good moving unseen. But first he had to find them. He only had their first names, Sarah and Mark, and the faint memory of their voices. He needed to be discreet. He couldn't send his usual team. They were too recognizable, too likely to draw attention. He needed someone subtle, someone trustworthy, someone who understood the delicacy of the situation. He thought of Roy, one of his quieter security guards, a man with a gentle demeanor and a keen eye for detail. Roy was good at blending in, at observing. He could send Roy. He went to his desk, pulling out a notepad and a pen. Get the ring. Go to Goldsmith's himself. Too risky for anonymity. No, he wanted to choose it himself. Feel its weight, its meaning. He'd have to go disguised. Deliver the ring. This was the trickiest part. A direct delivery was out. A commune. Delivery was after. Something that made it feel earned or divinely sent, rather than charity. A simple, heartfelt note, perhaps. No return address. He leaned back, a new energy coursing through him. This was a mission. A secret mission of kindness. It felt good, right? It felt more real than any concert. This was about giving back not to the masses, but to two deserving souls who thought their dreams were beyond reach. He'd make sure this ring was beautiful. Exactly what Sarah had imagined, not ostentatious, but elegant. A symbol of enduring love. He would see to it that their magic happened, and he would do it without anyone knowing it was him. Or at least he'd try his best to keep it a secret. The thought of their faces illuminated by surprise and joy warmed him from the inside out. He wouldn't just give them a ring. He'd give them hope. He'd give them their piece of magic. The next morning, Elvis felt a surge of purpose he hadn't experienced in weeks. The idea of helping the young couple, Sarah and Mark, had solidified into a tangible mission. He was usually surrounded by people, but for this he needed a quiet, capable hand. He found Roy, one of his most trusted security personnel, in the kitchen sipping coffee. Roy was a former police officer, quiet and observant, known for his ability to blend into a crowd rather than stand out. "Roy," Elvis said, keeping his voice low, "I need your help with something personal and very discreet." Roy nodded, his expression unreadable. "Anything, boss." Elvis led him to his study, closing the door. He explained the situation, omitting his own celebrity status in the diner, simply saying he'd overheard a conversation that touched him deeply. He described the young couple, Sarah and Mark, their yearning for a wedding ring, and their financial struggles. "They mentioned Goldsmiths," Elvis said, tracing a pattern on his desk. "And they seemed like good, honest people. I want to help them, but I want it to be done with dignity. No fanfare, no knowing it came from me if possible." Roy listened intently, his gaze thoughtful. "So you want to find them, boss?" They didn't give a specific address or job, just first names. "But I remember the diner. Maybe you could discreetly check with the staff there, see if they remember the couple, if they're regulars. Or perhaps they mentioned a workplace, a neighborhood. Anything small that might help us identify." Roy wasn't just a guard, he was a friend, and Elvis knew he could trust him with the sensitivity of this task. "I can do that," Roy said, a faint smile touching his lips. "It'll take a little time, but I'll be careful. I won't draw attention." "Excellent," Elvis said, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "And once you find them, I need to know a little more. Nothing intrusive. Just confirmation that they're the people I think they are. That they're truly deserving. I trust my gut. But, well, you understand, Elvis was generous to a fault. But he also wanted his generosity to land where it would make a true difference. Consider it done, boss." For the next few days, Elvis waited. The anticipation was exhilarating, a pleasant distraction from the usual demands of his career. He tried to go about his routine, but his mind kept drifting to Sarah and Mark. He imagined Roy out there, subtly asking questions, putting pieces together. Roy returned a few days later just as discreetly as he had left. "I found them, boss," he said, his voice quiet. "Sarah Jenkins and Mark Peterty Center. Sarah in administration, Mark helping with youth programs. They live in a small apartment above a bakery on Elm Street. They're good people. Boss, real good. Dedicated to their community. And they're getting married in about 6 weeks, according to the whispers at the center. No ring yet, though still saving." Elvis felt a swell of warmth. And they were exactly as he'd imagined. Hard-working, community-minded, deeply in love. The fact that they were still trying to save for the ring, despite their struggles, only reinforced his desire to help. "Perfect, Roy," Elvis said, a grin spreading across his face. "Absolutely perfect. Now for the next step." He pulled out a map of Memphis, spreading it on his desk. He pointed to Elm Street, then to Goldsmith Jewelers downtown. "I need to go to Goldsmith's myself, but not as me, as someone unremarkable. I want to pick out the ring myself. I want to feel it in my hand, imagine it on Sarah's. Can you arrange for a car and a way for me to get in and out without being recognized? I can get you a plain car, not one of yours, and I'll drive. We can go early, right when they open. Fewer people around, and I can make sure the back entrance is clear." "Good, Roy," Elvis said, a twinkle in his eye. "This is going to be something special." He felt like a secret agent on a vital mission, but instead of spies and villains, his targets were 2 loving hearts, and his weapon was kindness. The search for Sarah and Mark was complete. Now it was time to find the perfect symbol for their love story. It was time for the ring. The morning was crisp and quiet when Elvis and Roy set out. Elvis wore an old baseball cap, pulled low, large, dark sunglasses, and a simple denim jacket that made him look like any other man off the street. Roy drove a nondescript Ford sedan, blending, paking into the sparse early morning traffic. Their destination, Goldsmith Jewelers? Elvis had picked Goldsmith's for a reason. Not just because Sarah and Mark had mentioned it, but because it was known for its quality and its classic designs. He didn't want something flashy or ostentatious. He wanted something timeless, elegant, something that whispered of enduring love rather than shouted of wealth. As they pulled up to the curb just down the street from the jeweler's, Elvis felt a strange mix of nerves and excitement. It had been years since he'd walked into a store like this without causing a commotion. He took a deep breath, adjusted his hat, and stepped out. The bell above the door chimed softly as they entered. The store was quiet, the air cool, and faintly scented with polish. Display cases gleamed under soft lights filled with glittering treasures. Behind the main counter, an older gentleman with kind eyes and silver hair looked up. He wore a crisp suit and a magnifying loupe hung around his neck. This must be Mr. Henderson, the owner. Mr. Henderson looked at Elvis, and a flicker of recognition passed through his eyes, quickly masked by professional courtesy. He was a discreet man, accustomed to dealing with Memphis's elite, and he knew how to maintain confidentiality. "Good morning, Mr. Henderson," said his voice calm. "How may I help you?" Elvis cleared his throat, trying to keep his voice neutral. Less resonant than usual. "Good morning. I'm looking for an engagement ring. Something special." "For someone special, I presume?" Mr. Henderson smiled gently. "Indeed," Elvis replied. "Thinking of Sarah?" "It's not for me directly. It's for a very deserving young couple. They're quite in love, but they've been struggling to afford something beautiful to symbolize their commitment." He kept it vague, but the sincerity in his voice was undeniable. Mr. Henderson nodded, his gaze perceptive. A philanthropic gesture. A very noble pursuit. Do you have a particular style in mind? Or perhaps a budget?" "The budget isn't the primary concern," Elvis said, trying not to sound too grand. "It's the meaning. I want something classic, elegant, but not overly large. A diamond, yes, but not so big it feels out of place, something that speaks of purity." Mr. Henderson's eyes twinkled. "I believe I understand something that will be cherished, not just admired for its size." He led Elvis to a section of the display case filled with solitaire diamonds in delicate settings. Elvis peered closely at the rings. He imagined Sarah's hand the way she might wear it every day. He wanted it to be comfortable, practical, but also breathtaking. Pointed to a ring with a perfectly cut, brilliant round diamond set in a simple, elegant platinum band. It wasn't the largest, but its sparkle was exquisite, almost alive. "This one," Elvis said, his voice softening. "This one feels right. It has a light about it, like hope." Mr. Henderson carefully removed the ring from the case, placing it on a velvet pad for Elvis to inspect. "An excellent choice. A GIA certified diamond, superb clarity and color. The platinum band is timeless and durable. It will truly last a lifetime." Elvis held it, feeling the weight of it, imagining the dreams it would represent. He saw Sarah's tears in the diner, her quiet longing for a little piece of magic. This ring, he decided, would be that magic. "I'd like to purchase this one," Elvis then added, "and I'd like to pay in cash discreetly, and I'd prefer for the purchase to remain anonymous." Mr. Henderson simply nodded, his face unperturbed. "Of course." He led Elvis to a back office, away from the main showroom, where the transaction could be handled without drawing attention. As Elvis paid, he felt a profound sense of satisfaction. It wasn't just buying a ring. It was investing in a dream, a promise. The jeweler carefully placed the ring in a small, elegant velvet box. "It will bring great joy, I am sure," Mr. Henderson said, handing over the box. His gaze met Elvis's, a silent acknowledgement of the king's quiet act of kindness. Elvis took the box, his fingers brushing against the soft velvet. He looked at the ring one last time, imagining its journey from the quiet of the jewelry store to the hand of a woman who had only wished for a dream to come true. He felt a deep warmth spread through him, a feeling far more fulfilling than any roar of applause. He knew without a doubt that this was the right thing to do. The ring was ready. Now came the most delicate part, the delivery. Back at Graceland, the ring box sat on Elvis's bedside table. A small, dark velvet square, holding so much hope. He looked at it often, turning over the final pieces of his plan. Key was to make the delivery feel like an act of fate, not charity. It had to be a moment of pure, unadulterated joy for Sarah and Mark, untainted by the knowledge that a famous singer had intervened. He called Roy into his study. "The ring is magnificent," Elvis said, gesturing to the box. "Now for the delivery, we have their address on Elm Street. Here's what I've come up with." Elvis had spent hours considering different scenarios, sending flowers with the ring, too common a direct knock on the door. He wanted it to feel like a discovery, a true piece of magic. "We'll need a package," Elvis explained. "A plain, sturdy box inside the ring, carefully nestled, and a note, a simple, anonymous note." He picked up a piece of paper he had prepared. "For Sarah and Mark, may your love shine as brightly as this promise from a friend who believes in dreams." No signature, no hints of his identity, just a heartfelt message. "Here's the plan," Elvis continued. "I want you to deliver this package directly to their apartment, but not like a regular package I wanted rate. So I tell them something like, 'Congratulations, you've been chosen for the annual Community Spirit Recognition, and this is a token of appreciation?'" "Exactly," Elvis affirmed. "Keep it brief, polite, and firm. No lingering, no small talk. Just deliver the package, convey the message, and leave. You can say something about the organization wanting to remain anonymous, to keep the focus on the good deed, not the giver." "That'll cover my tracks. Refer them back to a non-existent committee or selection board." Elvis chuckled. "Just be vague. The goal is to make them feel special, not suspicious, and tell them this award includes a special gift for their upcoming wedding. That explains the ring." He handed Roy the carefully wrapped package which contained the ring box, nestled in soft tissue paper. The anonymous note was tucked inside. "I want you to observe their reaction if you can, without being obvious," Elvis instructed. "But don't wait around, just get a sense of their initial response. Then come straight back and tell me everything." Roy took the package, his expression serious. He understood the importance. "I'll make sure it's perfect." Later that afternoon, Elvis paced his study, a knot of anticipation tightening in his stomach. Roy had left an hour ago. He imagined the scene. Roy discreetly approaching the apartment on Elm Street, knocking on the door. Sarah or Mark opening it, their faces probably tired from work, surprised to see a stranger with a package. The polite, slightly mysterious exchange, then the moment of discovery. He pictured them opening the box, seeing the glint of the diamond, reading the note. Would they be confused? Would they gasp? Would they cry? He hoped for joy, pure and unadulterated. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, he heard the familiar sound of Roy's car pulling back into the Graceland driveway. Elvis practically sprang to the door, meeting Roy in the hall. "Well?" Elvis asked, his voice hushed, eager for news. "I told her the organization preferred to remain anonymous and then left just like you said." He paused, relishing the moment. "And then they hugged for the longest time, and Sarah was crying, boss big, happy tears. Mark was too, I think. They kept looking at the ring, then at each other, then back at the ring. It was like they couldn't believe it." Elvis felt a wave of emotion wash over him. A quiet warmth spread through his chest, deeper and more satisfying than any applause. He had seen the happiness he'd envisioned. He had to leave it was a community award? Elvis asked, wanting to ensure his anonymity held. "Absolutely," Roy confirmed. "They seemed genuinely thrilled and surprised. They have no idea it came from you. They just think someone out there recognized their good work and wanted to do something kind. Good, Elvis said, a profound sense of peace settling over him. That's exactly how it should be. The ring was now with its rightful owners. The seeds of a dream had been planted. Now he could only imagine the beautiful bloom that would follow. Sarah was exhausted. Another long day at the community center, managing budgets and volunteer schedules. She loved her job helping others, but it barely paid the bills. She pushed open the door to their small apartment above the bakery, the sweet scent of fresh bread already fading as the day wore on. "Mark, I'm home," she called out, dropping her bag by the door. Mark emerged from the tiny kitchen, wiping flour from his hands. He'd been experimenting with the new pizza dough recipe for the youth program he ran. "Hey, love. Rough day. Just tired." Sarah sighed, leaning into his hug. His arms felt like home. "And still thinking about you, know." It was the unspoken shadow that sometimes hung over their otherwise bright future. They sat down to a simple dinner of pasta, talking about their day. The conversation eventually drifted to their wedding plans. Mark looked at Sarah, puzzled. "Expecting anyone?" She shook her head. "No. Maybe the landlord." Mark opened the door to find a tall, well-built man in a plain suit holding a medium-sized package. The man had kind eyes but a serious demeanor. He looked familiar somehow, like someone she might have seen around town but couldn't place. "Good evening," the man said, his voice polite but businesslike. "Are you Sarah Jenkins or Mark Peterson?" "We both are," Mark replied, a little wary. We didn't know there was such a thing." "It's a new initiative," Roy explained smoothly, "and the committee prefers to remain anonymous to keep the focus. This package contains a token of our appreciation and a special gift for your upcoming wedding, which we understand is quite soon." He extended the package. Sarah reached for it, her hands trembling slightly. "Oh, thank you. This is unexpected." "You're most welcome," Roy said, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. "Enjoy, and congratulations again on your upcoming marriage." With a polite nod, he turned and was gone, disappearing down the stairs as quietly as he had arrived. Sarah and Mark stared at the plain brown package, then at each other. "What on earth?" Mark muttered, taking the box from her. "A Community Spirit Award." They hurried back inside, closing the door. Sarah ripped open the brown paper. Inside, nestled in soft tissue, was a small, elegant velvet box. Her heart began to pound. "Mark," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He took the box, his fingers fumbling slightly as he opened the lid, and then he froze. A gasp escaped Sarah's lips. Lying on the white satin cushion, nestled securely, was a ring. Not just any ring. It was the ring, or one strikingly similar to the one she had dreamed of, a brilliant, perfectly cut diamond set in a simple, gleaming platinum band. It seemed to pulse with its own inner light. "Oh my God," Mark breathed, his eyes wide with disbelief. Carefully lifted the ring out, holding it up to the light. It sparkled, catching the last rays of the setting sun filtering through their window. It was perfect, more than perfect. It was exactly what she had wished. Poor tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, blurring her vision. This was her little piece of magic. She reached out, tracing the delicate curve of the band with a trembling finger. "Is this real?" Mark looked at her, his own eyes glistening. "It's real, Sarah. It's really real." He slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. The diamond seemed to glow, a beacon of hope, and answered prayers. Then Mark remembered something. "There was a note," he said, rummaging through the tissue paper in the box. He found it, a simple card with elegant handwriting. He read it aloud, his voice thick with emotion. "For Sarah and Mark, may your love shine as brightly as this promise from a friend who believes in dreams." They stared at the note, then at the ring, then at each other, speechless. Who would do something so incredibly kind, so thoughtful? It wasn't charity. It felt like a blessing. Sarah burst into tears. this time of overwhelming joy and gratitude? Mark pulled her into a fierce hug, burying his face in her hair. The ring shining on her finger was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was a tangible sign that magic did exist, that dreams, even the quietest ones, could come true. Their love, which had always been enough, now had a brilliant, shimmering symbol to match its strength. The ring became the heart of their apartment. It sat on Sarah's finger, gleaming a constant reminder of the incredible anonymous generosity that had touched their lives. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude and wonder. "I still can't believe it," Sarah would say, turning her hand, watching the diamond catch the light. Who would do something like this, mark a community spirit award out of nowhere? Mark would just shake his head, a smile always playing on his lips when he looked at it. Whoever it was, they saw something in us, or maybe they just believe in what we do. It's truly amazing. The ring changed things subtly but profoundly. It wasn't just about having a material possession. It was about the feeling it brought. It was validation. It was hope made tangible. Quiet despair they sometimes felt about their financial struggles, the small moments of envy when they saw others with perfect lives. Those feelings began to recede. They had been seen, appreciated, blessed. They decided to tell their closest friends and family about the mysterious gift, framing it as a recognition for their work at the community center. Everyone was astonished. Speculation ran wild. Perhaps a wealthy philanthropist, a secret admirer, or even a foundation they hadn't known about. No one guessed the real benefactor. The story became a local legend, whispered with awe and wonder. Inspired by this incredible stroke of luck, Sarah and Mark threw themselves into planning their wedding with renewed enthusiasm. The simple church ceremony suddenly felt grander, the potluck reception more joyful. The ring was the star, a silent testament to the extraordinary kindness they had received. "We have to make this wedding truly special," Sarah declared one evening, beaming. "It's not just about us anymore. It's about celebrating this amazing gift, this belief in dreams." Mark agreed wholeheartedly. The ring had lifted a burden, but it had also ignited a spark, reminding them that good things could happen, that love could overcome obstacles, even those that seemed insurmountable. Meanwhile, back at Graceland, Elvis received his updates from Roy. Roy would drop by, sometimes just for coffee, and casually mention how the Community Spirit Award was being talked about. "They're absolutely thrilled," Boss Roy reported one afternoon. "Sarah wears the ring every day. People at the community center are buzzing about it. They're convinced some anonymous donor is supporting their work. They're planning their wedding with so much excitement. Boss, it's really something to see." Elvis would listen. He gave because he felt a need to, because he had been blessed and wanted to share. But this particular act, this precise, targeted act of kindness, filled him with a unique and profound satisfaction. Pictured Sarah, her hand held high, the diamond catching, the light tears of joy streaming down her face. He saw Mark, his relief and happiness evident. He had truly made a difference, not just with money, but with meaning. He had given them their magic. The feeling was intoxicating. It was more rewarding than a chart-topping hit, more fulfilling than a sold-out concert. This was pure, unadulterated giving with no strings attached, no expectations of return. He had allowed them their moment of magic, preserving their dignity while secretly fulfilling their deepest wish. He realized then that sometimes the most incredible move wasn't a grand public spectacle, but a quiet, unseen gesture of the heart. It was about touching lives in a way that resonated long after the act itself. Sarah and Mark's joy was his greatest reward, a private, cherished melody playing in his heart. The story of the mysterious ring spread through the local community like wildfire, hushed whispers and excited exclamations following Sarah and Mark wherever they went. It was a feel-good tale in a world often starved for them, a testament to the idea that good things happen to good people. But as the wedding day drew closer and the ring continued to dazzle on Sarah's finger, a new kind of buzz began to circulate. This buzz carried a specific name: Elvis. It started subtly. Mrs. Gable, an elderly woman who volunteered at the community center, admired the ring one afternoon. "It's so beautiful, dear," she cooed. "Reminds me of a ring my niece once showed me, said it was a gift from a very generous man. A famous man," she said, "who loved giving out gifts. Couldn't quite remember his name, though." Mrs. Gable was known for her selective memory, so Sarah and Mark didn't think much of it. Then came the local newspaper. A junior reporter fresh out of journalism school got wind of the Community Spirit Award and the anonymous gift. Intrigued, she started digging. She visited the community center, spoke to Sarah and Mark, who, eager to share their joy, recounted the story of Roy and the mysterious package. The reporter named Jenna decided to pay Goldsmith a visit. "We had a very special order a few weeks back, Mr. Henderson," the jeweler said cautiously, remembering his promise of discretion to Elvis. "Gentleman came in very particular about the quality. Wanted something classic, beautiful, but not overly flashy. He paid in cash. Wanted it to be anonymous. Said it was the knowing look in his eye. He had excellent taste and a very kind heart. And well, he sounded a lot like someone you might recognize from the radio." Jenna's ears perked up. "Someone from the radio. Who?" Mr. Henderson just smiled. "My lips are sealed, young lady, but let's just say Memphis has a few very generous souls." He motioned subtly to a framed photo of Elvis, with his famous diamond-studded TCB ring on his hand, hanging discreetly on the wall behind him. The ring in the photo, though different in style, had the same impeccable cut and sparkle as the one he'd sold for Sarah. Jenna left Goldsmith's with a lead, thin but exciting. She returned to the community center, watching Sarah as she coordinated volunteers. The way the diamond on her finger caught the light, the subtle platinum setting it suddenly clicked. Elvis was known for giving out rings, especially unique high-quality ones. He was famous for his impulsive, generous acts. Sarah and Mark, unaware of the growing speculation, were busy with wedding preparations. One afternoon, they were picking up flowers at a small florist shop on the edge of town. Sarah glanced out the window, watching a sleek, dark limousine glide slowly past. It looked like one of Elvis's cars, but she dismissed it as a coincidence. After all, there were other limos in Memphis. But then Mark spoke, a strange look on his face. "Did you see that limo? It had a discreet TCB emblem on the back window." "Thought I was seeing things." Sarah's breath taking care of business, Elvis's motto. Her heart began to pound. It was just a fleeting glimpse, but a seed of doubt, or rather a seed of astonishing possibility, began to sprout in their minds. Over the next few days, more tiny clues seemed to fall into place. A security guard from the community center mentioned seeing a tall man with sunglasses and a hat, looked a lot like the king himself, hanging around for a bit, then just disappearing on the day Roy delivered the package. Mark remembered the mysterious Roy from the Community Spirit Award, and how impeccably dressed he was, like someone who worked for a very important person. Sarah found herself rereading the anonymous note. "From a friend who believes in dreams, who believed in dreams more than Elvis. The king, who had come from nothing to achieve everything, who embodied the American dream." They didn't dare speak the name aloud to each other, not yet. It felt too big, too unbelievable. Could it be? Could the most famous man in the world, someone they only knew from records and movies, have personally arranged this incredible gift for them? The thought was both exhilarating and overwhelming. The magic they had wished for, the anonymous kindness, was beginning to take on a very familiar, very famous face. The wedding day dawned bright and clear, a perfect autumn morning in Memphis. Sarah awoke with a flutter of nerves and an overwhelming sense of joy. She looked at her left hand, the diamond on her ring finger sparkling even in the dim light of dawn. It was real, all of it. The love, the upcoming vows, and the incredible, almost magical gift that had brought them so much hope. Church was small, adorned with simple arrangements of white roses and green foliage chosen by Sarah and Mark to reflect their understated style. Friends and family filled the pews, their faces alight with happiness. There was a buzz in the air, not just of a wedding, but of the extraordinary story that had brought them to this day. Mark waited at the altar, his heart thumping. He watched Sarah walk down the aisle, radiant in her simple white dress, her eyes shining. As she reached him, he took her hand, his thumb brushing over the cool metal of the platinum band and the dazzling warmth of the diamond. It felt right. More than right. It felt like destiny. The ceremony was beautiful, filled with heartfelt vows and laughter. Pastor spoke of love, commitment, and the unexpected blessings that grace our lives. As Sarah and Mark exchanged rings, his simple band and her magnificent diamond, a wave of emotion washed over them. This was it, the dream realized, just as the pastor pronounced them, husband and wife. And Mark leaned in for their first kiss. A subtle, almost imperceptible movement caught Sarah's eye. Through the stained glass window near the back of the church, she saw it, a dark, elegant car, pulling away from the curb. It looked exactly like the one Mark had seen days ago, the one with the faint TCB emblem. For a fleeting second, she thought she saw a silhouette. A hat pulled low, turned his head towards the church, then it was gone. Swallowed by the morning traffic, she squeezed Mark's hand. He looked at her, his eyes full of love and a question. She simply smiled. A secret knowledge passing between. She simply smiled. A secret had a very strong. After the ceremony at the community hall, the reception was a lively, joyous affair. Laughter filled the air, music played, and everyone congratulated the happy couple. Sarah couldn't stop looking at her ring, a symbol not just of her marriage, but of the profound kindness that had touched their lives. Later, as they were cutting the cake, a discreet delivery was made to Mark. It was a single, perfect white rose wrapped in silk ribbon, with a small, unadorned card attached. Mark opened it. Card read, "May your love story continue to be filled with magic, and your dreams always shine bright, from a friend." No name, no explicit mention, but the familiar phrase, "friend who believes in dreams," from the original note, echoed in their minds. And the perfect white rose, a symbol of purity and enduring love, felt like a personal touch. Mark caught Sarah's eye over the heads of their guests. He held up the rose for her to see, then tilted the card slightly so she could read it. A shiver ran down her spine. The car, the TCB emblem, the jeweler's hints, the subtle surveillance, the anonymous note. And now this final quiet blessing. Their eyes met a profound understanding passing between them. No need for words, no need for confirmation. The king of rock and roll, the man who embodied dreams, had truly reached out and given them their piece of magic. He had witnessed their joy, perhaps even from afar, and offered one last silent benediction. Their wedding day, already perfect, had become something truly legendary. Not just for them, but for the quiet, generous soul who had made it so. Life for Sarah and Mark settled into a beautiful rhythm after the wedding. The ring continued to sparkle on Sarah's finger, a constant, tangible reminder of the day their quiet dream had shimmered into reality. They never spoke the name Elvis aloud when discussing the mysterious gift, not to anyone outside their inner circle. And even then, it was always with a hushed reverence. It felt too sacred, too magical to be paraded about. The anonymous note, the subtle clues, the fleeting glimpse of the TCB car, the single white rose. These were their private pieces of the puzzle, confirming their deepest suspicion without needing a public declaration. They understood that the true magic was in the discreet, thoughtful nature of the gift, not in the celebrity status of the giver. Preserve their dignity, allowing their love story to be the focus, not a famous person's generosity. The story of the Community Spirit Award and the beautiful ring continued to be a legend in their small corner of Memphis. It became a source of local pride, a testament to the unseen kindness that could exist in the world. people would look at Sarah's ring and smile, believing in the good in humanity. Meanwhile, Elvis, back at Graceland, often thought of Sarah and Mark. Roy occasionally updated him, how they were thriving, how Sarah never took the ring off, how their wedding was spoken of as the happiest anyone had seen. Elvis would listen, a deep satisfaction filling him. This particular act of generosity resonated with him in a way few others had. He had given away cars, homes, countless gifts, but this was different. This was targeted, personal, and profoundly evil on two lives. It wasn't about solving a grand problem or making headlines. It was about fulfilling a quiet, heartfelt wish. He realized that the incredible next move wasn't about the monetary value of the ring, or even the grand gesture. It was about the way it was done. It was the empathy, the quiet investigation, the careful planning to ensure their dignity, the anonymous delivery, and the silent blessing from afar. It was about truly understanding their need for magic and providing it in a way that felt like a gift from fate. Elvis, the king, was accustomed to adoration, to fame, to the roar of the crowds. But in the quiet fulfillment of Sarah and Mark's dream, he found a different kind of joy, a deeper peace. It reminded him of what truly mattered: connection, kindness, and the profound power of giving without expectation. Sarah and Mark built a beautiful life together. Their love, already strong, was deepened by the shared secret of their magical wedding ring. They continued their work at the community center, always remembering the anonymous kindness that had touched their lives. And they, in turn, found small, quiet ways to spread kindness in their own community, paying forward the incredible generosity they had received. The ring on Sarah's finger wasn't just a symbol of their vows, it was a beacon of hope, a reminder that dreams, even the most private ones, could be touched by a quiet, incredible act of kindness. And for Elvis, it was a silent testament to the enduring power of a heart that believed in dreams, not just for himself, but for everyone. He had indeed given them their piece of magic, and in doing so had found a little more magic for himself.